actually found another one here too. The Lewiston Tribune. UI student's death raises questions. January 23rd, 2013. Associated Press. In this undated photo provided by Moscow, Idaho Police Department, University of Idaho student Joseph Wiederrick is shown. The body of Wiederrick, 18, was found by trackers with Latah County Search and Rescue under the Paradise Creek Bridge, police said. At this point, we don't believe any foul play is suspected, according to Moscow Police Chief David Duke. The Moscow Police Chief's name was David Duke. Okay. Here's an article from Daily News, Moscow Pullman. Student highly intoxicated at death. UI forms task forces on Greeks and on drug abuse. Wiederrick's BAC was twice the legal limit. Parents upset no one helped their son. Article by Brandon Max. February 15, 2013. Toxicology report for University of Idaho freshman found dead under a Moscow bridge last month shows his blood alcohol level was at least 3 times the legal limit when he left a frat party and twice the limit when his body was discovered 1 day later. Wait, how do they know it was 3 times? I guess they're just estimating. Joseph Wiederrick, 18, of Haley, Idaho, had been attending a party at the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity, January 19th, with his Theophilus Tower roommate when they were separated, and he never returned home. His body was discovered on ice under a bridge under Mountain View Road around 4 p.m. January 21st. Police determined he'd walked nearly 7 miles before falling down in the frozen Paradise Creek bed where he died of hypothermia. Moscow Police Chief David Duke said a toxicology report shows Wiederrick's blood alcohol content at the time of death was 0.17, meaning it was somewhere around 0.25 to 0.3% when he left the fraternity. Marijuana was also discovered in his system. Duke said the lead investigator in the case Thursday cited Wiederrick's friend Dakota Vugwert, 18, of Haley, for allegedly providing alcohol to a minor. Wiederrick had gone to the fraternity party to visit with Vegwert, who was pledging there at the time. Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt said she had expected other substances would have shown up in Wiederrick's toxicology report. I've heard of several of the students who have been disoriented, so it certainly made me think it was something else, she said. That's all that really showed up. All of the drugs would keep absorbing and some don't last as long. We've tested for a lot of stuff and it came back negative. The results of the toxicology report were shared with Wiederrick's parents, Bob and Michelle Wiederrick, prior to its release to the public. Wiederrick's mother said it is hard to be upset with the young partiers, but she is more upset with the residents her son had approached prior to his death. A woman on Highland Drive reported finding Wiederrick lying on the floor just inside her house about 3 hours after he is believed to have left the party. Duke said the woman asked him to leave. Another resident on North Mountain View Road reported he'd come to her home, but she sent him to her neighbor across the street. Wiederrick's footprint indicated he crossed the street and went around the neighbor's home instead, jumping a fence and crossing Paradise Creek. You can expect so much from an 18-year-old kid, but when 2 adults turned my kid away into the night, he expressed he thought he was dying and he was turned away, said Michelle Wiederrick. If there is a lesson from this, it's just to learn to help each other. I think that's the thing that breaks my heart, because he could still be alive if people helped when he asked for help. Joe was not a party kid. He was not trouble in high school, she said, adding he was studying to become an architect. He definitely had the talent for it. I'm sure he would have done well. Duke confirmed Wiederrick's roommate was also highly intoxicated at the SAE party and traveled south near East Palouse River Drive before correcting himself and finding his way home. Very well, we could have had 2 boys that didn't make it home that night instead of 1, said Wiederrick's mother. Ahead of the release of the Wiederrick's toxicology report, the University of Idaho announced Thursday morning the formation of a substance abuse and Greek life task forces. The substance abuse task force will review prevention education programs, current policies, and enforcement strategies. We have been quite aggressive this fall and earlier in providing educational programs and doing enforcement, said the Dean of Students, Bruce Pittman. And I think the events of the last few weeks have certainly made us more intent to look for ourselves and see if there's more that we can be doing. The Substance Abuse Task Force will consist primarily of student leaders, faculty, and staff, Pittman said, with a few Moscow community members. We have received confirmation from several of our student leaders, and they plan to participate, he said. It will be a relatively larger group than the Greek task force. The Greek Life Task Force will consist of a small group of fraternity and sorority alumni, including those who have served their national organizations in some capacity. The relationship of the UI to the Greek system will be reviewed, Pittman said, with recommendations on how the relationship should proceed in the future. There are many models about how universities are related to Greek systems that they find on their campuses, he said. Some campuses, particularly in private schools, have very intrusive models where fraternities and sororities are required to be in university residences and strictly monitored. On the other extreme, there are campuses where fraternities and sororities are not even recognized by the institution. I think we're to the point where we need to ask a question about whether the model we're using or if the university needs to adopt a different policy or strategy in regard to our Greek system. The two task forces are expected to provide university administration with reports of their findings and recommendations by late spring. I would like to work with them as soon as we can get through this hard part of our grief process, said Michelle Wiederrick about the UI. From my point of view, we've all tried to keep kids from drinking for years. Maybe what we can learn from this is to teach them to watch out for each other instead of just laughing and thinking it's funny and sending them off into the night to hopefully help each other, even if it's a stranger. Okay, so another tragic case all around, but from all accounts here, it seems like this one was less suspicious and there was some kind of an investigation. Although I can't find anything regarding Hudson Lindau in that department. Also, there seems to be some kind of a troubled history here with these sororities and fraternities. Like, how far back does this go? And also, I don't have the numbers here, but what are the average amount of deaths, suicides, bodies being found in the creek at any university with a particular population per capita, so we can compare it to the University of Idaho? Does it really stand out, or does it not? But either way, we have a minimum of 2 deaths here with potential circumstances involving similar groups of people in these Greek fraternities and sororities. So, again, might not mean anything, or maybe it does. How would one know without objective investigation? I mean, there's definitely more questions than answers here, and there seem to be more and more questions piling up almost daily, just regarding more and more connections or theoretical connections, possible connections. What is going on here? This town does not seem to be as sleepy, as innocent, and as first portrayed, anyway. And adding in these skinned coyote pranks, this dog. I mean, people aren't really talking about the dog that was supposedly abducted and skinned not too far away from this house as well. I mean, what is going on here? What kind of activities are some of these potentially frat members or whoever else involved in? And does that have anything to do with this particular quadruple homicide? All the MindShock listeners can chime in with their own thoughts, theories, comments of any kind as we continue to investigate one of the most shocking cases, not just in modern history, but possibly ever.